Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon. Thank you very much for taking some time amidst your busy schedule and joining our webinar here. So we really appreciate your presence here at Manage Engine. So thank you once again. All right, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Vivin Satyan, and I work as a technical consultant in the Active Directory team here at Manage Engine. Now, as a technical consultant, there are two major responsibilities that I hold. One is I implement Active Directory products in organizations across the globe. And number two is I get to interact with administrators, with various administrators in conferences, in seminars. So with that little bit of experience, I have now created a presentation for you, and I'd be more than happy to share some of the knowledge that I have gathered over these years that could help you better manage your Active Directory infrastructure. Now, when I say Active Directory infrastructure, now in this specific webinar, I am being more specific to object management in Active Directory. So how do you manage your users? How do you manage your computers? How do you manage groups, permissions? How do you retrieve information? I'm going to be talking about that. All right. Now, before we start, if you have any issues in hearing me, or if you have any issues in seeing my screen, please make use of the chat window that you have on your screen to let me know that you have some issues. So I hope everything is okay for now. And if at all you have any questions related to the things that we're going to discuss over the next 45 minutes, please do shoot out questions. So we have a team right here who are waiting to answer your queries. All right, let's get started. The topic for today is Active Directory Management Techniques for Enterprises. All right, and the agenda for today's session would be, I thought it would be better if we start off with some of the common activities that administrators do on a regular basis. So I have categorized some of the tasks that administrators do into four aspects, right? So four aspects of Active Directory management, and then we'll be having a look at the options that we have in hand to perform all those four operations or four major categories of operations. And we'll also be exploring some of the limitations that we have with the native tools which Microsoft has given us to perform these four categories of operations. And I would be suggesting a better alternative for you. You can then, explore and then see whether it is a best fit for your organization or not. So this is the agenda for the next 45 minutes, and let's get started with the four aspects of Active Directory management here. Now, administrators in most of the organization, when it comes to object management, have these four responsibilities. The first one being they need to be able to retrieve information from Active Directory. And the second one is they need to actually manage objects within the Active Directory infrastructure, like creating user accounts, adding users to group, removing users from groups, resetting passwords, unlocking accounts. And they have the manual way of doing stuff, and also they have this automated way of performing these operations, which is managing objects. The third responsibility is going to be delegating actions to other users in the Active Directory infrastructure, and also auditing the actions that you have delegated. So you have your HR initiating the user creation process, you have your help desk technicians resetting password and unlocking accounts. So all this comes into the category of delegation. So what is more important is there has to be a system by which you audit the actions that the delegated users perform. So you delegate the delete operation to a user in Active Directory. So you have to have an auditing mechanism in place that is actually going to audit the actions that the user performs, right? So this would be the third responsibility. Fourth one is again finding out and removing stale accounts from Active Directory before they become a security threat. So when I say stale accounts, I am referring to inactive users, inactive computers, and also groups without any members in it, right? Because security groups specifically, if not monitored or if not organized, can become a point of entry for an intruder. So it is very important that an administrator performs an Active Directory cleanup in order to ensure that the Active Directory is not in the wrong hands, right? So we're going to have a look at the ways by which we can perform these four operations. And the options that we have in hand to perform these four tasks is we have the native tools given by Microsoft, and we have the third-party tools. All right, you have third-party vendors, you have other vendors giving you tools for better managing Active Directory, and Microsoft also gives you some built-in tools for managing your Active Directory infrastructure and performing the four operations that we just described in the previous slide. Now, to be more specific about the native tools, this is exactly what I'm referring to. So these are some of the tools that Microsoft has given us in order to manage your Active Directory infrastructure, right? So you have PowerShell, you have your ADUC, which is Active Directory Users and Computers console. You have, if you have Office 365, Microsoft has another console for that. And then you have Skype for Business. If you have Exchange servers and mailboxes, we have another console. And in order to audit the actions, you have the Event Viewer. So we have these tools for managing and auditing your Active Directory infrastructure from Microsoft. When Microsoft gives you these many tools, there are going to be pros and cons to these tools. So I'm going to actually discuss with you some of the challenges that we have in hand when it comes to managing Active Directory infrastructure with the native tools which Microsoft has given us. Right now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to belittle Microsoft or belittle the tools given by Microsoft here. For instance, PowerShell is going to be a very powerful tool when it comes to retrieving information from Active Directory. But PowerShell doesn't do that good of a job when it comes to formatting the information that it has queried. So we're just here to discuss the pros and cons of the tools that we have in hand. Now, if you are creating, let's say, 5 user accounts in Active Directory with a PowerShell script, right? And 4 user accounts get created fine in Active Directory, and 1 user account failed, so because of some odd reason. Now, do you think that the PowerShell script that you executed will return with the exact reason for the failure of user creation? I don't think so. So that is the first challenge that I have in this slide. Confirmation messages that you get from such scripts aren't going to be very helpful when it comes to troubleshooting. That's the first challenge to start off with. Now, when it comes to reporting, we are talking about multiple platforms here. We are not talking just about Active Directory anymore. So we are talking about Office 365, G Suite, Exchange servers, Event Viewers, Skype for Business console. So consolidating information from all these tools are going to be a bit of a task. You can either use scripting or any other third-party tools for consolidating information. But if you're just going to stick to the native tools, it's going to be a bit of a task, right? Now, when these two things are going to be a bit complex for the administrators, now think about delegating this to the non-admin users, because the learning curve involved and also the time involved in understanding the technology, understanding the tools that Microsoft has given us is not something that you cannot overlook. So we obviously have some challenges with regards to the native tools that we just saw, which is PowerShell and few others that we just discussed. So there are some challenges. So what will be a better alternative? So a tool shouldn't be so easy that it loses effectiveness. So it should strike the right balance between being effective and also user friendly. So that's exactly the kind of tool that we at ManageEngine have developed for you when it comes to managing Active Directory, and that tool is named as ADManager Plus. Now, over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be discussing with you on the ways by which you can perform the 4 basic categories of operations of Active Directory management with a tool from ManageEngine, which is ADManager Plus. All right. So Four aspects. The first aspect being retrieving information from Active Directory. Now, be it administrators or technicians, you want information in hand and you need to know what's going on in your Active Directory infrastructure. So it is very important that you have a secure Active Directory environment. That's fine, but in order to secure Active Directory infrastructure, you need to know from time to time what is going on. And that's when the responsibility of retrieving information from Active Directory becomes very important for an administrator. And I'm not going to be talking about all the things that you need to retrieve from Active Directory, but some of the major stuff that you would definitely need to look at, right? Now, the first thing that you would want to know is if you are an administrator of an Active Directory infrastructure, and let's say an auditor steps in and then asks you this question, hey, how many administrator accounts do you have in Active Directory? It's very simple. Now, most of us go with group-based permission assignment. So you open up the top-level security groups in Active Directory, get the list out, and then say that you have close to 20 or 21 administrators in your infrastructure. That includes domain admins, schema admins, enterprise admins, the members of the administrators group, and you name it. You just get the list ready. But the thing is, group membership is not always about a direct query. Now, this has to be nested. So in order to find out the actual administrators or the exact group membership of user account, we'll have to follow something else. Let me quickly show you what I'm talking about so that we better understand the importance of finding out the group membership in a recursive manner. All right. So I'm quickly going to go to my test setup here, and let's say this is my test setup, right? Now, what I'd like to do is the first thing that I want to find out is I would like to find out the exact group membership of this help desk technician, because I just went through the security logs of my domain controller this morning, and I found out that this technician, who was supposed to be just creating accounts in Active Directory, has somehow managed to disable a couple of accounts. So the first thing that I do is I open up the properties of this account. I go to the member of tab to view the group membership of the user, because I just wanted to make sure that the user is the part of the right groups and he does not have any elevated rights in Active Directory for disabling accounts. I just go through the list: domain users, a very basic group, and this is another basic group, basic. Now, all these four groups are very basic groups and do not have rights to disable accounts from Active Directory, but the same technician has disabled accounts in Active Directory. So the answer to the problem is somewhere else. It is definitely not in this console, right? So what I now decide is I would like to investigate the group membership of these groups. So the first thing that I do is I would like to inspect the group membership of the account provisioning group here in Active Directory. So this is the group that I'm going to open right now. So I hit cancel. I go to the OU in which I have the group. The group is right here. This is a very basic group in Active Directory that is supposed to be just creating accounts in a specific OU. Not all the OUs, just a specific OU. So I'm trying to investigate the group membership of this specific group. Double click, I go to the members, I find the technician right here, but when I go to the member of, this is where the problem lies. And this is how a normal technician in Active Directory, so the technician that we are going to be talking about is this one, ITHCT. Now this technician in Active Directory, even though he is going to be a member of four basic groups in Active Directory, now has domain admin rights. How's that? Because this group in Active Directory is in turn linked to the domain admins. So just by having a look at this console, you wouldn't be able to find out the exact permissions of a user account. So it is very important that you perform the query in a recursive manner in order to understand the permissions of a specific user. Now, you can very well open up PowerShell and maybe do a query, right? But it involves a lot of tweaking. and the formatting is not good enough. So if to make things even more, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a PowerShell query that's going to give me the list of members in the administrative group. And let's see how user-friendly the report is. So I'm going to get the members, get AD group members, and I'd like to get the members of the administrators group, and I'd like to do that in a recursive manner. So when I do this query, okay, it looks like the query is successful, and now PowerShell has returned with the group membership of the administrator's account in a recursive fashion. Now, it is very powerful in retrieving information, and it was very quick, but think about just formatting this information and then presenting it to your auditors or to your managers. That is where the challenge lies. All right. So when you cannot present the information that you have in an understandable format, this information would be less effective to act upon. So now I'm going to perform the same query here. I'm going to find out the group membership of this technician account using a tool called ADManager Plus. So for which I have the query out of the box. I need not write a PowerShell script. I need not open up the Active Directory users and computers. I just go to groups for users, and then I am trying to find stuffs here. All right, so just give me one quick minute here. I'm sorry for the trouble. I hope all of you can hear my voice, or if at all you have any issues, just let me know. Let me quickly check. Okay. It looks like things are okay. So sorry about that. So let me just get back to the point where we were. Okay. Now we were trying to find out the group membership of this specific user, which is ITHTT. The Microsoft console returned with 4 groups. The member of tab had 4 groups, whereas ADManager Plus gives you 8 groups. And the increase in count is due to the fact that we have performed a recursive query. We have now found out that the basic group in Active Directory, which the technician was a part of, was in turn linked to domain admin. So this is where the problem lies, right? So now this is just not a reporting tool. This is going to allow you to add or remove users from such inappropriate groups. Now, all you need to do is just select a few checkboxes here, go to more actions, and perform the operation that you want. So it is that simple. Finding out and managing permissions or the group membership of user account. Now, this is one type of query where you select a specific user, hit generate, get the list of groups that the user is a member of. Some of you would like to perform the query the other way around. So you would like to know the members of the administrators group. It's not just selecting a user and generating a report, it's selecting a group and then getting to know the members in that specific group, both direct and nested members. So I go to users and groups. This is performing the query the other way around. I select the group administrators, which is a very powerful group in Active Directory, and I'd like to look for nested group membership as well. I hit generate, right? I have the query right here. All right, so it looks like I have 13 members in the administrators group. So this is a recursive query. So this tool allows you to perform the query from a user's perspective and also from the group's perspective. That's very important. Now, when you have information in hand with clarity, you can very well fix inappropriate group membership and avoid too many administrators. All right, so now this is the first query that I wanted to share with you. All right. Now, the second query is finding out and managing permissions on confidential folders. All right. Now, let's say I have one such folder here and the name of the folder is Corp Data. Now, I want this Corp Data folder to be accessible only by the people in my accounts department or in my finance department, because corp data has information about the pay scale of my employees, the invoices, and all other finance stuff which regular users should not have access to. So I create a folder, I put all the files in order, and I made sure that the file was accessible only by the finance managers group, right? Now, the problem is, if you have more than one administrators in your organization, now there are multiple people who can manage permission on this folder. So it becomes very important for administrators to do two things when you have such folders in your infrastructure. The first thing is you will have to analyze the permission on this folder on a regular basis, at least once in every week. Make sure that confidential folder permissions are assessed. And number two is, during the assessment phase, if you find that there are certain users uh, in the list whom do you think is inappropriate, you don't want those people to be accessing this confidential information, you need to fix them right away. So again, two responsibilities. One, find out who has access to this piece of information. Number two, fix inappropriate access immediately. So if I'm going to do this the Microsoft way, step one, I need to know who has access and what level of access do they have. So I go to properties, I go to security. Here is an alarm. Now, I just wanted the finance managers group to have read access over corp data, but I'm back from a vacation and I see this. Now, before finding out who did this, I need to fix the inappropriate permissions immediately, right? That's what I would want to do. So I don't want confidential information to be in the hands of inappropriate users, right? So I'd like to fix the permissions. Now, in order to fix the permissions, you should actually be knowing what are the existing permissions in the first place. So if you select a specific user, it looks like this user has full control, but you do not know whether this full control is applicable to all the subfolders that is there within the folder. So it is not just about querying the permissions of this folder. You'll have to query the permissions of all these subfolders as well, right, in order to know who has access. It's going to be a bit of a task if you plan to do this one by one by going to the security tab and then finding out permissions and then removing them. So we make things more easy. Again, I go to ADManager Plus. I'm performing step one here. I'm trying to find out who has access and what level of access do they have on a selected folder, a shared folder in my network. So I go to permissions for folders and I select the corp data folder which we are talking about, because that's the name of the folder here, which is corp data. So I open the exact folder here, and then I get to query the subfolders as well. So I select the number of subfolders that I'd like to query and I hit generate. Now this is going to be a live query. Now I have the list. Now I know what level of access do users have on that specific folder. In order to get detailed information, I just hit advanced, right? Now I know who has access over the parent folder and also the subfolders here and what level of access they have. Now, if I have clarity in step one, which is knowing the existing permissions, then I can very well proceed to step two, which is fixing inappropriate access rights. So I go to AD management, file server management. We're talking about modifying the existing permissions on a shared folder. So modify NTFS permission, and the folder that we're talking about is corp data. So I hit select, I choose the right file server, and I have corp data right here. I hit OK, and I want corp data to be accessible by only one security group in my infrastructure, and that is going to be the finance manager security group. So I go to groups, I type finance, I have finance managers, I hit OK. So I want the finance managers to be having just read access. All right, nothing to write, just read. Or I can even decide any advanced level permissions if I want. So I now define what level of access should they have over corp data, and I can even decide whether the permission that I'm defining now should be applicable for all the files and folders. And I can explicitly deny permissions for them as well, but for now, in our case, this is going to be allowed. Now, to make things even more simple for you, we give you an option to even copy permission from another folder onto this specific folder. How simple is that? So you already have a folder structure in place with the exact permissions that you want. Just copy permissions from that folder and paste it on this instead of you manually defining the permissions. Now, this is all about setting permissions, right? But we have still not removed the other entries on this folder. We have just made sure that the finance managers have access, but how am I going to remove the other users from having access to this folder? I'm not going to be doing it one by one, so I wouldn't be going for a tool to be doing it one by one. That's when we give you a very simple yet effective checkbox. This one reads, remove all existing permissions and apply only the above permissions. So I'm going to do that, and I hit modify. Before hitting modify, if I'd like to have a quick review of the permission that is about to be updated, I have an option to preview as well. All right, so I just go to preview and I see the permissions right here. Everything looks good to me, and then I hit modify. So the minute you hit modify, only the finance managers will have read access over corp data, and the other entries will be wiped out, not only from the parent folder but also from the subfolders. So this is how you maintain permissions on confidential files and folders in your infrastructure. This is another query that might be of interest to you. All right, now third one. As administrators, we all have this basic requirement of retrieving user information from Active Directory for one reason or the other. It could be you have a third-party application and you want to import all your Active Directory user information into that tool, so you need the list of user accounts with the exact attributes that you're looking for. So you can be retrieving information for that or for any other reason. So instead of you performing the query manually, all you need to do is just generate a very simple report. So you go to AD report, we have the LDAP query right here. So you have the all users query, and then you hit generate. Or if you'd like to target a specific organizational unit among all the organizational units that you have, you can even do that, right? But for now, I'm just going to query all the users in my Active Directory infrastructure. Okay, and so I have the first name of the users and their security identifiers. All right, so I have this information. Now you can export this information to any different format that you want: CSV, PDFs, a spreadsheet, or even a CSV DE document, and then import it to any other tool so that you have all your user information there. Now, you would like to actually add more information to this specific report. You'd like to add users department, users title, users telephone number, users when was the user account created, what is the password expiry time, account expiry time, what is the account status, because all of those are going to be attributes related to these user accounts that could give you more information about your Active Directory users. So you just go to add or remove columns. All right, so you have account status, you have day since password last set, just to know when did the user last change his or her password, and also the password expiry date, the account expiry time, and another 30 or 40 Active Directory attributes that you can add to this specific report. And this includes custom attributes as well. So you hit OK, Now you have everything populated in this report. Simply export this report and maybe integrate it or import it to any other tool of your choice, right? Now, this becomes very handy when we talk about crucial attributes like your security identifier. So for instance, if I'd like to find out the administrator, the actual administrator account in my Active Directory infrastructure, I know that the security identifier for the administrator account ends with 500. So I just search for 500 and hit enter. So you see that uh, the security identifier ends with 500 for the account James Bond. And what have I done is I've just created a dummy account and I've named it administrator, and I've actually renamed the administrator account in my Active Directory infrastructure to something called James Bond. So why do I do this? This is called as honeypot. So if someone is going to be logging into my Active Directory infrastructure with the dummy administrator account, I know for sure that my organization is under attack, because everyone within the organization know that the account James Bond is the actual administrator, and the dummy one is just for misleading an intruder into and also getting to know whether the account is under attack or not, right? So useful information with just few mouse clicks. This would be the third query that you might be interested in. Now, the last query that I would like to share with you here is, please run this query against all your domain controllers and see whether you have any users getting listed. Now, what is even more important is, when you have user accounts that have not logged into your infrastructure even once, now please query or please find out when was the account created, because you might have 20 accounts that have never logged into your Active Directory infrastructure even once, but out of 20, all 20 of them might be created. I mean, you might have created all those 20 accounts yesterday. If you have all such accounts, then there isn't going to be any problem. But there is a specific scenario where you might have a problem when you have accounts that have not logged in even once. To better explain the seriousness of this, I have the next slide here. Now, I create 5 user accounts in Active Directory. In most of the organization, there is a very common practice. So if I create 5 user accounts, all 5 of them have the same password, and I just enable the flag which reads force user to change the password at next logon, hoping that the user will be logging into my AD, and then the user will be prompted to change the password. All right. So if you have the habit of using a common password for the first time, and you have some accounts that have never logged into your Active Directory infrastructure, please watch out for the when created attribute in Active Directory, because I have 3 accounts right here: HR, a vendor account, and an account for the IT staff. So the HR account is vulnerable, and so is the account for the of the IT staff. The reason being, I have created them in Active Directory on the 1st of August, and I've created this account on the 1st of September, which is like a month ago or more than a month old. And the account has a common password, and the account has not logged into my Active Directory infrastructure even once. And what is even more a cause for worry is, the account is still in an enabled state in Active Directory. Now, if an intruder is able to crack the common password of such newly created accounts, it would take him less than 48 hours to crack the domain admin's credential. So that's not my statement. That is actually a research done by Microsoft, and they say when a domain user's password is compromised, it takes less than 48 hours for an attacker to compromise the domain admin's credential, which is basically giving away the keys of your kingdom, right? So when you have such accounts, please track them. How do you track them? How do you find out whether there are any users in your organization that have not logged in even once? Very simple. Go to AD reports. We have the query out of the box. Users never logged on. You generate, and now you have the list. Great. All the information that you want in order to know the severity of the problem is right here. So I have 95 accounts in my domain that have not logged into my Active Directory infrastructure even once. How do I confirm that? The last logon time reads 0. If the user has logged in today at 10 in the morning, I would have 10 a.m. here. So the user has not logged in, and that's why the last logon time reads 0. Now, I would also like to know when were these accounts created, because I do not want to be deleting an account that was created this morning. So, whereas if I have an account that was created 2 months ago and the account is still in an enabled state in Active Directory, I might want to disable that account immediately for security reasons, right? So, I have the name of the users that have never logged in even once, and I can see that some of these accounts were created in 2015, start of 2016, and they are still in an enabled state in Active Directory. Now this is something that an administrator would not like to see, right, when you run a query against your DC. So the first thing that you might want to do is select such accounts and then probably disable them immediately. You do not want to be deleting them, because you might be afraid that this could break something. For safety reasons, you just disable the account. All right, so just in case the user steps back, you can very well enable the account. Now, after disabling the account, I would suggest you to move those users to a different organizational unit. Please quarantine these accounts from your active users or the users who have actually logged in. And then please make sure that you audit the activities on that specific OU in which you have all such accounts. Because when I move these accounts to a different organizational unit, and then after 2 months, I sense a logon activity from that specific organizational unit by any of these accounts. All right. And if that logon activity is a VPN logon activity, for sure that someone is trying to get into your organization, right? So it's very important to filter such accounts and then probably move them to a different organizational unit for security reasons again. All right. Now, I'm done with the first responsibility, the first category that I wanted to share with you. The second one will be, apart from retrieving information from Active Directory, you administrators also have this task of managing objects within your Active Directory infrastructure. When I say manage them, you have user provisioning, group provisioning, computer object creation, and then you'll have to modify them and then delete them as part of the deprovisioning process, and also restore them if that's an accidental deletion. So creation, modification, and deletion, right? So we are talking about users, groups, computers, contacts, managing all of them and managing their life cycle. So to keep things more simple, right, I'm just going to stick to user objects. I'm not going to be talking about groups or computers. I'm just going to be talking about managing users and how an admin is going to manage users using the Microsoft console. Now, if you are an administrator and you'd like to create user accounts in Active Directory, which is one phase of managing them, and if you're going to do that with Microsoft tools, which is, let's say, PowerShell, okay, I'm quickly going to get a script from Microsoft that is going to help me create user accounts in bulk. So I just do get help, okay, new AD user. So I'm just trying to get a sample script for user creation here so that I can tweak the script and then execute it. So this is the sample script that I have in place. Now this is just for creating a very basic account in Active Directory. This does not involve creating Exchange mailboxes. This does not involve creating Office 365 accounts, assigning licenses, creating a Skype for business accounts, or assigning the right policies or any of that sort. This is just creating a very basic account in Active Directory, right? If you'd like to add Office 365 and a few other attributes, you'll have to again tweak the script according to your requirement, and then execute it. And if you have errors, and if that error message is going to be helpful, which in most of the case is not, so then we have a problem. So now we are talking about simplifying the process of user management, but this script isn't anywhere close to simplifying the process, right? Even though you can get things done with a script, it demands a certain level of expertise in order for you to actually tweak the script and then get things done in Active Directory. Now, to make things even more simple, we have this concept in ADManager Plus that's going to help you create user accounts in Active Directory with ease. All you need to do is just have a spreadsheet ready with the first name and the last name of your user accounts, give it to the application, and you get your Active Directory account created, accounts on your Exchange servers created, and whatnot. So if you are wondering how this application does take care of Office 365, G Suite, Exchange, Active Directory account, assigning the right licenses in Office 365, we have something called templates built just for that. Now, if you just have a look at the layout here, this has pretty much everything that a user account would have in Active Directory. That includes Exchange, remote mailbox, Skype for Business, your Office 365 account with license, G Suite, and a lot more. And this includes your custom attributes as well. So you create a template. Let's say you build template based on departments. You build 5 templates if you have 5 departments, and then use this for creating user accounts. Every time you have a new employee recruited for a specific department, load the template. All you need to do is just type the first name and the last name of the user account and hit create. That's it. Now, if you are talking about creating user accounts in bulk, all you need is a CSV file and then create user accounts. You can very well automate this process. That's the best part here. Now, if you have a tool like ServiceDesk Plus, which is going to be your help desk tool, or if you have ServiceNow, or if you have your Oracle databases, or any other database for that matter, which has user information, this tool can very well integrate with your databases and also your help desk tools, read user information like their first name and last name, apply the template, and create user accounts in Active Directory in an automated manner with all the attributes that you want. Now, this is what we refer to as effective user provisioning and deprovisioning process. All right. Now, if you have any questions in integrating your ServiceDesk Plus application with ADManager Plus, we'd be more than happy to share detailed steps in the form of a video. We already have prepared one, and we'd be able to share that with you so that you can, if you are using ServiceDesk Plus, which is a help desk tool, and if you are provisioning user accounts from that tool, you can very well log into ServiceDesk Plus and create a user creation request there and get user accounts created right from that console by integrating it with ADManager Plus. All right, so you can automate the process, you can integrate it with your help desk tools, or you can integrate it with your Oracle databases in order to retrieve user information and create it in Active Directory. All right. The third responsibility would be delegating actions. Now, Active Directory is no longer just about the administrators. You have your HR, you have your help desk technicians playing a role in Active Directory management. So you have the HR initiating the user creation process, and then you have your help desk technicians resetting passwords and locking accounts. Now, in order for them to do those actions in Active Directory, you as an administrator will be adding those users to specific groups in Active Directory, right? The problem is not in adding those users to the groups, right? The problem is if assignment of group membership is not managed properly, in the sense you add a user to a group for so that the user can reset password, and then the user resets passwords, and then the next day you want the same technician to be performing another operation, you add them to another group, and then you want the technician to perform another action, you add them to another group. So as group membership piles up, a regular user account in Active Directory now has admin level access or something equal to that. So we are talking about unnecessary elevation of user rights in Active Directory. In order to keep the administrative privilege to a bare minimum, to, let's say, if you have 1,000 employees in your organization, I would say that you have just 5 top level admin accounts, and then you remove all the excess privilege from the other accounts in Active Directory, and but you can still delegate actions to them. All right, so we are talking about uh, role-based access controls here. Now, instead of adding users to groups in Active Directory and actually modifying the permissions, all you need to do is just create a custom role, something like this, with the exact operations that you want, be it reset password, unlocking user accounts, or deleting users, creating users, and then you map this role to a technician. And the technician can perform the operations only when they are in this tool. The minute they hit sign out, their Active Directory permissions are still untouched. So you as a super admin can have complete rights over the domain controllers or access to your domain controllers and everything. Whereas you delegate roles to other users or less privileged users in your Active Directory infrastructure, HR, help desk, or a specific OU admin, you just map them roles and not actual Active Directory permissions. That's the best part. There's a difference here. The super admin has domain admin rights or enterprise admin rights in Active Directory. They can log in and perform actions that they want, whereas the other users will be performing actions in Active Directory, but they will not have any permissions mapped to them in Active Directory. So using this model, we are now keeping the admin rights to a very few users who really need it, and not to everyone in the organization. So too many administrators can be avoided using this model, using task controllers. So the other users to whom you have delegated actions, they log into ADManager Plus and then perform actions in Active Directory, right? So this is how you keep the permissions to a bare minimum. Now, when you delegate something to other users, let's say your help desk, there has to be a way by which you audit the actions as well. We give you an option to do that too. So this tool, which is ADManager Plus, not only allows you to create a non-invasive delegation model that's not going to alter the permissions of users in Active Directory, but this also allows you to audit the actions done by your technicians. And also, you get notified in real time whenever a crucial action is performed in Active Directory. Let's say a technician deletes an account in Active Directory and you want that to be notified to you in real time in the form of an email or an SMS. Yes, we have notification profiles in this tool as well. So you delegate and you also audit the actions, and also besides getting notified in real time. All right. So we are talking about effective delegation model here. Now, I know some administrators are not comfortable in letting users delete user accounts in Active Directory or disable user accounts. For those of you, you can very well have a concept called as workflow methodology, within ADManager Plus and then apply it for your technicians. So your technicians no longer will be able to delete user accounts in Active Directory. Instead, they can raise a request to you for user deletion, and there can be multi-stage approval, and you as an executor, you go through the list of accounts that are about to be deleted, and then if you feel that the list is valid, you hit execute and the action takes place in Active Directory. So a request and approve methodology for crucial actions can also be performed using this tool in ADManager Plus. Now this is something that you do not have with the native tools. I'm referring to your Active Directory users and Computers Console. The last category of action that an administrator would want to perform is to find out whether there are any inactive users, inactive computers, or whether there are any groups without any members in them, and then maybe remove them, or let's say quarantine them from Active Directory or sequential manner, right? So Active Directory cleanup is something that you can perform or automate using this tool called ADManager Plus. And if you're wondering what is the big deal about having some users who are inactive in your Active Directory infrastructure, there are two primary reasons, or two major reasons I would say, that you should be handling, or why you should be handling such accounts. One is it is going to enhance your security if you remove such inactive accounts from Active Directory, because inactive accounts, especially high privileged accounts, if they are inactive and in an enabled state, you definitely need to handle those accounts to tighten your security. Else, if that account's credential fall in the wrong hands, then it could cause serious damage to your organization's security, right? So it's very important from a security standpoint. And also, if you have any application for that matter, in your organization that you have procured based on the number of users in your organization, then you might be wanting to paying only for the active users and not for the inactive ones. So if you have purchased the license for 1,000 users and only 800 of those 1,000 users are active, the remaining 200 license is going to be an unnecessary cost in your budget. So it's very important that we find the active and the inactive users. So instead of you doing this stuff manually, you can automate the process of cleaning up your Active Directory from such stale accounts. You can tell the application to find out accounts that have not logged in for more than 180 days or 365 days or 120 days. And then you can tell the application to move those accounts to a different organizational units. Who knows, if there are 20 accounts that are inactive for the last 180 days, among those 20 accounts, 2 of them can be administrators. So from a security standpoint, you remove all those inactive accounts from the top level security groups in your domain. You can define them right there. And the next step is you disable those accounts. And you're not going to delete them right away, because just in case some of the users actually turn up, you might have to provision the account from scratch. So in order to avoid that, you can wait for 60 days. You have it right here. You can wait for 60 days or 180 days or 90 days and then delete the accounts from Active Directory. All right. So first move them to a different organizational unit, remove them from top level security groups so that they don't have elevated rights no longer, and then disable those user accounts immediately. After 60 days, delete the accounts from Active Directory. So this could be an effective deprovisioning process that you can create with this tool called ADManager Plus. Now that we're talking about delete and disabling stuff, you might want to link this automation to to a ticketing system, or to maybe supervise the operation and then allow it to happen in Active Directory. So that can be done with the tool as well. So you supervise actions. If you feel that all these accounts are fit to be deleted, you then hit approve. Something similar to the workflow model that we just discussed. So instead of a user raising a request, It is now the tool that is going to raise a request to you stating, hey, there are 15 inactive users and all of them are about to be deleted. So request you to review and then move forward. So you review it and then you hit execute. All those accounts will be deleted in Active Directory. So that's what I was referring to as supervise and execute automations. All right, so a quick recap. We saw 4 different aspects by which you can better manage your Active Directory infrastructure. All right, so those 4 aspects were actually retrieving information, managing objects, the manual and the automated way, delegating and auditing actions in Active Directory, and also performing Active Directory cleanup. So this session was about using native tools for doing all this stuff versus using ADManager Plus, right? So I hope you found this session useful. If you have any questions related to the topics that we have discussed so far, so you can very well get in touch with us. Please drop an email to us or to the email address that you see on the screen, or you can very well make use of the chat window for asking questions. We'd be more than happy to answer. Thank you very much for your time and patience. All of you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.